Are you thinking about buying a house in Northern Virginia, but with home prices and interest rates on the rise, you're not quite sure exactly how much money is going to cost you? Well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because in this week's video, I'm going to share with you the true cost of buying a home right here in Northern Virginia, and we're getting started right now. Hey everybody, it's David, your favorite realtor. So how much does it cost to buy a home right here in Northern Virginia in 2023? Well, let me share with you the breakdown of what you can expect in today's video. First, we're going to go over the home prices of homes that have already sold in Northern Virginia in 2023. Then we're going to go over some fixed costs associated with buying a home that you pay outside of closing. Then we're going to go over down payment options, and I'm going to go over the two most common loan programs that I see here in Northern Virginia. Then we're going to dive into everybody's favorite closing costs, and I'll give you an estimate on what you can expect to pay for closing costs. Then I'm going to pull up my fancy mortgage calculator, and we're going to do an example monthly payment. And then we're going to find out how much you need to earn to comfortably afford the average home here in Northern Virginia. Last but not least, we're going to find out, is 2023 even a good time to buy a home, or should you wait till next year? So what are homes selling for right now in Northern Virginia in 2023? So with the four major counties in Northern Virginia, with Prince William, Arlington, Fairfax, and Loudoun County, the average sales price overall is $690,000. Now I know that's a huge number, and it really is. But just so you know, you can definitely find a fantastic home well under that average sales price of $690,000. In fact, my personal home in Ashburn, which I bought last year, was $665,000. So I'm actually under the average sales price, and I absolutely love my home. So now, for the purposes of this video, we're going to go with the average sales price overall for a home in Northern Virginia was $690,000. So what does a $690,000 home in Northern Virginia even look like? Well, let's find out. I'm going to jump on my local MLS, and we're going to look at a couple examples. So this is a townhouse in Sterling, sold for $690,000 back in February. This is built in 2019, 3 bedrooms, 5 bath, 2,700 square feet, beautiful townhouse. Beautiful kitchen, love the quartz countertops. This townhouse features a loft with my personal favorite feature, the rooftop terrace. Now let's check out a home that sold earlier this year in Herndon. It's a single family home built in 1979. It's 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, about 2,100 square feet. But this has some nice updates throughout, recessed lighting, beautiful hardwood floors. So this is actually a great value for a $690,000 single family home in Herndon. So basically, that's $690,000 in Northern Virginia. It'll get you an older single family home or a much newer townhouse. Now let's dive into some out-of-pocket expenses. So when you're buying a home, the majority of your out-of-pocket expenses are going to be paid at closing. However, there will be some expenses that will be paid prior to closing. Now, for your first expense paid outside of closing is going to be your inspections. Now, there are so many different types of inspections, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to focus on the 2 most common inspections, and that's going to be general home inspection. That's where you're checking like your roof, your HVAC system, water heater, appliances, things like that. And then the second most common inspection is going to be your termite inspection. And on average, when you combine the home inspection and the termite inspection, I usually see is about $650. Now, the next expense that you can expect to pay before closing will be the appraisal. Now, the appraisal is going to pay directly to your lender. And what an appraisal is, basically it's a third-party, unbiased professional opinion on the home's value. And the average price that I see for an appraisal is usually about $650. So now, so far, for example, our out-of-pocket expenses are $1,300. Now let's talk about down payment options. Now, the type of home loan that you end up going with can determine what your down payment will be. And the 2 most common home loans that I see here in Northern Virginia, first is going to be a VA loan. If you're not familiar with VA loan, what that is, it's a loan made for active duty service members and veterans. And the biggest pros to using a VA loan, one is 0 down. That is awesome right there. And the next benefit to a VA loan is, most times I see VA loans have a much better interest rate, especially compared to conventional loans, at least 8 times out of 10. Now, the next most common home loan that I see here in Northern Virginia, and this is actually the most common, and that's going to be a conventional loan. And conventional loans usually start at 5% down, but you can go as high as 10, 15, 20, 30, 50% down. Now, there's some exceptions to the rule. If you're like a first-time home buyer, I've seen conventional loans as low as 3%. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to do 5% down on our example. So 5% down on a $690,000 home is going to come out to $34,500. Now, off to everybody's favorite expense of buying a house, and that is closing costs. I am just joking. Literally, I've never met one person in my life who's loved closing costs. So unfortunately, closing costs are a necessary evil when buying a home. So on average, closing costs is probably about 2.5% of your sales price. It can be a lot higher and it can be a lot lower, but a good safe number to budget for is 2.5% of the sales price. Now, one thing to keep in mind with closing costs is if you're using a VA loan, your closing costs will be a little bit higher compared to a conventional loan because you have to pay the VA funding fee. Also, new construction homes tend to have higher closing cost amount compared to resale properties. In fact, I personally bought a new construction home and my closing costs were about $4,000 more compared to had I just bought a resale property. So what do closing costs even consist of? It's a bunch of little fees and they really add up. First, you have lender fees, lenders and owners title insurance, 6 months of property tax paid up front, 6 months of homeowners insurance, prorated HOA dues, and you know the county and state have to get a taste of the action, so you can pay something called a recordation tax, which is a fee that goes to the state and the county. I've also seen some neighborhoods charge something called a capital contribution fee, which is basically a welcome to the neighborhood fee. So these are just some of the fees that you can expect to pay as part of your closing cost. But just so you know, closing costs, they're 100% negotiable between you and the seller. And depending on which house you're submitting an offer on, sometimes you can get the seller to pay part or even all of your closing costs. Just really depends on the certain situation. Is the home brand new in the market and it has 5 offers? Well, chances are you're not going to get closing costs paid for. And the flip side is, let's say the home's been on the market 30, 40, 60, even 90 days, and it's a very motivated seller. Well, guess what? Now you as a buyer have a lot of the leverage, and chances are you can get the seller to pay some or even all of your closing costs. So for a $690,000 home, our closing cost is going to be $17,250, and our down payment is $34,500. Plus our fixed costs paid outside of closing of $1,300. So our total money out of pocket comes out to $53,050. So that $53,000, that's only half the battle. Obviously, we have a monthly payment to worry about. So I'm gonna jump on a mortgage calculator and we're gonna do an example monthly payment. Again, this is just for informational purposes only. Your situation can be a lot different than the example I'm about to do. But if you wanna know exactly what your monthly payment will be, your interest rate, your down payment, I would always recommend reach out to a local lender. I'll leave my go-to lender's contact information in the description. Reach out to him, he's a rock star. All right, before we can jump into the mortgage calculator, I gotta see what today's interest rates are. And right now they're 6.55%. Actually, when I was doing my research for this video last week, they were as high as 7%. So they actually dropped quite a bit in just a week. So let's jump into the mortgage calculator. Again, we've been using the average sales price of a home here in Northern Virginia. So that's $690,000 for our example. We're putting 5% down for our example. Interest rate, I have that typed in already, 6.55. Property tax, we're gonna take the property taxes from the Sterling listing we looked at earlier, which comes out to $424 a month. Homeowners insurance, obviously that's gonna depend on your specific situation. I'm just gonna go with $75, probably the average I see for this price home. HOA fees, that's what the HOA dues are on this community right here. And about $100 a month for HOAs. It's probably about the average I see here in Northern Virginia. Could be a lot higher, could be a lot less. PMI, now I'm just putting $150 a month for your PMI. It could be a lot more, it could be a lot less. Some ways to lower your PMI. One is have great credit. 2, if you're a first-time home buyer, it can actually be a little bit less. Or 3, get rid of it completely and put 20% down. So now our mortgage payment for that average sales price home comes out to $4,908 per month. So there we have it, the real cost of buying that average sales price home here in Northern Virginia 2023. It's gonna be about $53,000 out of your pocket and almost $5,000 a month. So how much salary do you need to earn to comfortably afford the average sales price home here in Northern Virginia? Well, most experts say never spend more than 30% of your gross income on housing, and I 1000% agree with this. So let's do the math. So your monthly mortgage payment of $4,923, well, that's gonna be 30% of $16,410 per month of gross income. Multiply that by 12, you get a yearly salary of $196,920 per year to comfortably afford the average sales price home in Northern Virginia. So yes, that is a lot of money. You basically have to make 200 grand a year just to afford the average sales price home here in Northern Virginia. But like I said earlier in the video, there's a lot of great homes here in Northern Virginia that you can buy that are way under the average sales price. So with high home prices and high interest rates, should you even consider buying a home in 2023 or just wait till next year? Well, only you can answer that question. I always tell my clients if they're thinking about buying a home, you have to check all 3 of these boxes. The first box is, are you in a strong financial position to comfortably afford the monthly payment and the down payment? The second box you want to check is, do you have a need and a motivation for the home? Let's say right now you're a family of 4 and you need cramped up in a small little 2-bedroom apartment. Well, guess what? You have a need for a much bigger home. And the third box you definitely want to check is, are you going to be in this home long term, at least 5+ years? Because the last thing you want to do is buy a home and look to sell it a year from now, and guess what? You end up losing money. So if you can check all 3 of these boxes, I say go ahead and buy. If you only check 2 of the 3 boxes, I say go ahead and wait. And if you want to learn more about living right here in Northern Virginia, check out these videos right here. They're going to be great resources for you. And I'll see you on the next video.